Some people look at a warning sign and think it's a mere suggestion. Others see a wet floor sign and decide it's an invitation to practice their Olympic figure skating. This is a deep dive into the absolute bottom of the human gene pool. 10 individuals who made choices so spectacularly idiotic that karma didn't even have to clock in for work that day. These folks didn't just make mistakes, they speed ran regret like it was a competitive sport. By the time we finish this list, you won't just feel smart, you'll feel like a literal Nobel Prize winner by comparison. Let's get into the Hall of Shame. Number 1. The online bulletproof vest test. Hold my beer has been the unofficial slogan of bad decisions for decades, but one Texas man took it to a level that science still can't explain. After spending a late night browsing the darker corners of the internet, he found a deal that was too good to be true. A professional-grade bulletproof vest for a fraction of the retail price. It had 5 glowing reviews from accounts that were definitely not bots, and most importantly, it offered free shipping. When the package arrived, he didn't do the sensible thing and test it on a mannequin or a heavy bag of sand. No, he decided that his own ribcage was the perfect testing ground. He donned the vest, stood in front of a mirror, and aimed a handgun directly at his own heart. His faith in sketchy online testimonials was total. The hammer dropped, the bullet fired, and physics immediately reminded him that free shipping usually comes at a high cost. The vest was about as bulletproof as a damp paper towel. He survived the encounter, but barely, spending weeks in the hospital reflecting on the fact that he had essentially outsourced his life expectancy to a random seller on a discount website. His faith in internet shopping died that day, right alongside his dignity. Number 2. The transparency of crime. Transparency is generally considered a virtue in business and relationships, but it is a catastrophic failure in the world of armed robbery. Our second contestant decided to knock over a gas station in the middle of the night. Fearing that his face might be recognized, he reached for a mask. Finding none, he grabbed the closest thing available, a clear, 100% transparent plastic produce bag. He walked into the store, pulled the see-through bag over his head, and brandished a weapon at the cashier. The cashier didn't scream. She didn't even flinch. She just stared at him with a look of profound, weary disappointment. While the robber was shouting demands, his breath was fogging up the very bag that was failing to hide his identity. The cashier simply pointed at the high-definition security camera. The robber looked up, saw his own fully visible, perfectly identifiable face staring back at him on the monitor, and realized he had just provided the police with the easiest conviction in the history of the county. He fled the scene, but the police had a better photo of him than his own mother did, so they were waiting at his front door before he could even get the bag off his head. Number 4. The deposit slip disaster. Planning a bank robbery requires a certain attention to detail, specifically regarding the anonymity part of the job. One aspiring mastermind entered a bank and realized he needed to write his demands on a piece of paper. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a slip of paper, and scribbled, "I have a gun. Give me all the money." He handed the note to the teller. The teller read the note, then flipped it over. On the other side was the man's personal bank deposit slip. It contained his full legal name, his current home address, and his actual account number with that very bank. The teller, being a professional, complied with the request and handed over the cash. However, as soon as the man walked out the door, she picked up the phone and read his home address to the police. The robber drove home, feeling like a genius, only to find 3 squad cars parked in his driveway. The police didn't even have to do detective work. They just followed the map he'd helpfully provided to them on the back of his threatening note.
Number 5. The lobster pants incident. Shoplifting is a crime of stealth, but it's hard to stay stealthy when you have a living, breathing, angry crustacean clamped onto your sensitive areas. A man in the seafood department of a high-end grocery store decided he wanted a lobster dinner but didn't want to pay the $40 market price. Looking for a place to hide the evidence, he decided that inside his baggy trousers was the most secure location. He stuffed the live lobster down his pants and headed for the exit. The lobster, suddenly finding itself trapped in a warm, dark, and confined space, did exactly what a threatened lobster does. It used its claws. The man's screams were heard 3 aisles over. He didn't even make it to the frozen food section before he was on the ground, frantically trying to unbutton his pants while the stolen goods refused to let go. Security didn't even have to tackle him. They just waited for the paramedics to arrive. To this day, the employees at that store tell the story at every holiday party, and the shoplifter has a very specific, pained walk that serves as a permanent souvenir of his free meal. Number 6. The "you'll never catch me" paradox. There is a moment in every police chase where the criminal feels like they might actually get away. For one man in the Midwest, that moment lasted about 10 seconds. After being pulled over for a routine traffic stop, he handed his driver's license and registration to the officer. Then, for reasons known only to him and his poor impulse control, he suddenly slammed the car into gear and roared away, screaming, "You'll never catch me," out the window. The officer didn't jump in his car. He didn't turn on his sirens. He didn't even drop his clipboard. He just stood there, looking at the man's license, which contained his photo, his name, and his current address. The officer finished writing the ticket, called for a tow truck, and then drove leisurely to the man's house. He sat on the front porch, finished a cup of coffee, and watched as the man pulled into the driveway 10 minutes later, breathless and triumphant. The look on the driver's face when he saw the cop waiting for him with a "welcome home" expression was the only victory the officer needed that day. Number 7. The dojo robbery attempt. If you are going to rob a building, it is generally advised to pick one where the occupants are not trained specifically in the art of breaking human bones. One man ignored this rule entirely when he decided to rob a local martial arts studio. He walked in with a weapon, interrupting a high-level Brazilian jiu-jitsu class. He was met with a room full of 30 people who spend their Tuesday nights practicing how to choke people unconscious. The silence in the room was absolute. The robber demanded money, but instead of reaching for wallets, the students looked at their instructor for permission. The robbery was over in roughly 5 seconds. The man was neutralized so efficiently that he didn't even have time to finish his sentence. When the police arrived, they found him wrapped in a very professional leg lock, crying and asking to be arrested because the jail cell sounded safer than the dojo. He left in an ambulance with the dojo's business card pinned to his chest, offering him a discount on intro to self-defense classes. Number 8. The revenge fantasy backfire. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, but that fury needs to be aimed at the correct target to be effective. A woman, convinced her ex-boyfriend had cheated on her, decided to get her revenge by redecorating his prized luxury car. She spent an hour in a dark parking lot using a key to carve elaborate profanities and creative insults into every single body panel of a black sedan. She was halfway through a particularly nasty word on the hood when she heard a voice from a nearby porch. "You're doing a real thorough job there," said a retired Marine who had been watching the whole thing while sipping iced tea. "Only problem is, my ex-husband doesn't live here, and that's my car." She had the right street, but the wrong house. The actual owner had already called the police and was recording the entire performance on his phone for insurance purposes. Her elaborate revenge fantasy didn't end with her ex feeling bad. It ended with her facing a $7,000 felony vandalism charge and a very awkward conversation with a judge about her lack of navigational skills. Number 9. The RV sewage explosion. Siphoning gas is a dirty job, but it's nothing compared to siphoning a black water tank. A man in a dark RV park thought he had found a gold mine when he saw a massive motorhome with a large tank underneath. He assumed, incorrectly, that because the vehicle was huge, it must have a massive fuel reserve. He crawled underneath with a drill and a bucket, intent on stealing enough diesel to last him a month. He found the lowest point of the tank and started drilling. However, RVs don't just carry fuel, they also carry the collective waste of a family of 4 who has been on the road for a week. As soon as the drill bit pierced the plastic, the organic pressure of the sewage tank took over. It wasn't a leak, it was a biological geyser.
The thief was instantly covered in something that was definitely not flammable, but was definitely life-changing. He was found an hour later at a nearby gas station, frantically trying to use the pressure washer on himself while crying. The smell was so potent that the police didn't even have to use a canine unit to track him. They just followed the scent. And there you have it. 10 people who proved that while intelligence is a constant, the capacity for human stupidity is infinite. If these stories made you feel like you've got your life together, do me a favor and smash that like button. Subscribe and hit the bell, because we are constantly scouring the globe for the next batch of people who make "hold my beer" their last words. Have you ever seen someone fail this spectacularly? Tell me the story in the comments. I'll be pinning the most Texas Man bulletproof vest level story I find. Thanks for watching, and stay smart out there.